Alhamdulillah, on the second night of Zulhijjah, we've been blessed to have had the opportunity to share the wisdom of two sheikhs from different parts of the world. We'll give them a 30-second break while you firm up some questions in your mind. We'll have time for an interactive session, inshallah. There's one mic in the center aisles. If you want to make a comment, please make it brief. The topic is wide, although we've had a comprehensive coverage of it by our two sheikhs. It is by no means left. There are still things left unanswered, and if any of you have pressing questions to ask, please identify yourselves on the mic, and I'll open the session to the floor. There's only one mic, unfortunately, in the center house. Yes, we see. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
This
question is for Sheikh Yahya, since Sheikh Nuruddeen has spoken about time. I would like to ask Sheikh Yahya about, well, we have only 24 hours in a day, and how do we balance, of course, as Sheikh Nuruddeen has mentioned, even work, business is also ibadah, of course, but of course too much of good things is not good, and we need to balance with our ibadah, our family, and our work. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ba'd. Time is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And managing time is another blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So being given time by Allah is one blessing. But knowing how to use time and to use it effectively is another blessing. And sometimes the two don't mutually exist with people. And what we find is many of the ulama, the people of high caliber of knowledge and practice, they used to institute routines in their life. And therefore you find that in part of spiritual development is to establish a wird, a regular act of spiritual reflection and dhikr between a person and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the word wird in Arabic, it means the place you visit to water yourself. You know, like imagine in the desert, you need a place to drink. It's where the water well is. It's the place that you need to live. So they used to establish a regular time in their life, a regular mode in their life. The Prophet ﷺ set patterns for us. Things that we say in the morning, things that we say in the evening. Salah is done in cyclical times. Prayer and fasting and all the other ibadah are adjusted by time. And one of the things that I think many of us miss when it comes to establishing routines is we focus on a clock rather than on the rhythms of our life. What are the rhythms of your life? Most people, you sleep by night and you awake by day. You're engaged in gainful employment in the morning usually, and you're finished usually, for most people, by the mid-afternoon, late afternoon, you're on your way home. And it's for those reasons, you know, there are very symbolic statements of the Prophet ﷺ and the words in the Qur'an. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, حَافِظُوا عَلَى الصَّلَاءِ الْوُسْطَى. Guard the middle prayer. Most ulama say that's Asr prayer. It's not Fajr prayer or a difficult prayer. You say, Asr, why is that such a significant prayer? In a hadith narrated by Imam Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ says, مَنْ لَمْ يُصَلِّ الْعَصْرِ, the one who did not pray Asr prayer in his day, بَطُلَ عَمَلُهُ. Any good deed he's done is forfeit. He gets nothing from it. If they're fasting, it's worthless. If they gave charity, it's worthless. If they prayed the other daily prayers, it's worthless. Why Asr? Because it's usually a time of winding down. You were at work, now you're just about home. You've just had a meal. You're about to have a meal. It's not late at night. You're not tired. It's not early in the morning. So the ulama, they deduce from this that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us in our liberal times, wants us also to give attention to Him, wants us to turn our attention to Him in our busy times, before our busy times. So you pray Fajr before you're going to get busy. and you pray dhuhr at a time where you've been busy for a most part of your morning, that you yourself, your body rhythm needs a break. You need to take your mind away from the math or the science or the chemistry if you're studying, or from the medicine you're instructing in, or from engineering, or from cleaning the sewer, or whatever it is that you're doing. It's now a time, people call it lunch break. They call it a break. But for us, the actual rhythm of your life is that it is a break from the dunya so that you find comfort in the akhirah. So look at the acts of worship in that light and begin to take advantage of those 5-10 minutes of salah. You know, you have 5 minutes for salah. Begin to relish the munajat. It's between you and Allah. Try to do it with others of like-minded people. That's why we have jama'ah. That's why you have been blessed. That in most, you know, I go to different corporations and do training and talk about Islam. Everywhere I go, there's a surah. Every shopping center I go to, there's a surah. The hotel that my extended family is staying in has a surah. Why? Because you can have an opportunity to choose Allah. Those who became icons in our estimation, in our spiritual feats as Muslims, you know, the likes of the great Imams of Shafi'i and them, when you hear what they used to do, you say, wow, that's impossible. How is it possible that Imam Shafi'i would recite the Qur'an every day? Every day. How is that possible? It's impossible. No, it's not impossible. It's possible. How did he use his time? Where did he emphasize his time? Don't think these Imams, they didn't have work like you and I. You know, sometimes you think, oh, no, brother, they were just sitting there reading Qur'an. That's all they did. No. They were authors. They were the PhDs of PhDs. They were the doctors of doctors. They were and Imam al-Nawawi, before the age of 40, had written 400 volumes. Thousands of pages. They used their time well. How does that happen? It's barakah. So I'm going to leave you with 2 statements of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in how he speaks about time. One is that he attaches time to Allah. And he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَنَا الدَّهْرُ, I'm the eternality of time. Meaning, time is forfeit with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does and sees with it what he deems appropriate. Peace and blessings be upon our Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Second, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells you in clear terms, اغتنم, take advantage of 5 things. Your life before your death, your health before your illness, your wealth before your poverty, your free time before your... We all know it. But now you just need to say, how can I take that hadith and apply it? It means carry around the Qur'an. Put an app on your phone. You're sitting there 5 minutes waiting between adhan and iqamah. Read something from the Qur'an. Time. You've been given 3-4 minutes. You're waiting in the surah, you're going to pray. 3, 4, 5 minutes, read a verse or 2 or 3 from the Qur'an. Find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in those moments of time, inshaAllah. And you will find that when you step to Allah, He will take 10 steps to you. You make one change, He will change 10 things for you. This is how it is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So be determined, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and I with that. Allahumma ameen.
Thank you for that answer. Alhamdulillah, it's very nice indeed for us to balance our yes, I see someone looking at the question. Professor?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sheikh Yahya did mention when you are merciful to others, Allah will be merciful on you. When you give, Allah will give you back more.
Now,
okay, this is just a question. You were eating one evening in a restaurant and we have 2 people, 9 coming,
asking for donation.
No.
It's quite common here. And then you have a reminder from somebody that says, you better be careful because these people are from syndicate. That's right. We are supposed to help people, but then you get that reminder that these people are from syndicate. That make other people rich. Right? It's quite easy actually for us to give if somebody is asking. I mean, you met somebody who is needing some food and you know that it's really needing the food. But somebody who come and asking for help.
Now, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu reports, as is in Sahih al-Bukhari, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان في من كان قبلكم, in the nation that came before your nation, there was a man of nobility, of honor, of ilm, well known to his society. And he was a person of wealth and authority. But even though he had that, there was a moment in his life where he was troubled. He had something that caused him not to be able to sleep. All of us in our life, there is something that troubles us. Sometimes you're awake, I haven't, alhamdulillah, Allah's blessed me, but there's something troubling me. I can't solve it for myself. You could have everything to solve one particular problem in your life, but you don't have the tools to solve this thing. So this learned man says, سَأَخْرُجُ اللَّيْلَ, if I can't solve my problem, I'm going to solve someone else's. This is how he thinks. This is how the righteous think. So he said, سَأَتَنَكَّرُ فِي ثِيَابِي, I'm going to change my clothes so that people don't know what I look like. وَأُلَفِّمُ وَجْهِي, and cover my face so people can't tell what I look like. And I'm going to go to a distant part of the city where people might not recognize me. So he went out in the darkness of the night. He's unable to sleep in the middle of the night, intending to give charity to the first person he meets and not let them know who he is and escape from them before they ask, who are you? Why did you give me this? فَالْتَمَسَ رَجُلًا, as he's walking in the darkness of the night, moonless night, he bumps into someone. إِلْتَمَسَهُ فَتَصَدَّقَ عَلَيْهِ وَانْصَرَفَ, he gave him charity, said, here is sadaqah, ran away. فَأَصْبَحَ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ, the next morning he woke up in his city. وَأَهْلُ الْمَدِينَةِ يَضْحَكُونَ, the people in the city were laughing, amused at what happened last night. فَقَالَ مِمَّا تَضْحَكُونَ, what happened last night? Why are you guys so, what's happened? What's the latest news? قَالُوا تُصُدِّقَ الْبَارِحَ عَلَى سَارِقٍ, someone last night was about to get robbed, and before he got robbed, he gave charity to the robber. In the darkness of the night, there was a guy sitting there waiting. He's like, oh, he looks rich. All right. Your money or your life was what he was about to say. But before he said it, he's like, oh, charity, wow. He went back to the criminals. And like, can you believe what happened? This guy gave me charity before I even robbed him. فَضَحِكَ الصَّحَابَةُ, the Sahaba laughed as you laughed. Then the Prophet said, this wise man, this learned man, pious man said, كَيْفَ يَقْبَلُ اللَّهُ الصَّدَقَةَ عَلَى السَّائِلِ, how can Allah accept charity to a thief? Allah's not going to accept that. He's a thief. I wanted an orphan, a widow, someone who, charitable, that I can be charitable to. So I'm going to go again tonight. So he went out the next night, did the same thing, woke up the next morning, everyone's laughing even more. What happened? تُصُدِّقَ الْبَارِحَ عَلَى عَاهِرَةٍ أَعَزَّكُمُ اللَّهِ, Allah honors and protects us. Last night someone gave charity to a woman of the night. What? He said, that's worse than the first night. He said, I got to give charity again. The third night he goes out, gives charity. People laugh the third morning. What happened? تُصُدِّقَ عَلَى الْبَارِحَةُ عَلَى غَنِيِّنَا, someone gave charity to the wealthiest man in our city. Stopped the Bentley and said, hey, here's 500 ringgit. It didn't make sense. So the Prophet ﷺ said, أَمَّا الْأُولَى, as for that first night, تصدق على السارق فاكتفى ولم يؤذ أحد. The first night, the thief received that money and said, I don't need to hurt anyone, and went home. So that charity that the man thought was insignificant or not going to be accepted, and thought it's not going to be a benefit, that man's a thief, a mugger, it actually prevented harm of others without him knowing. And as for the second night, أما الثانية فأخذت المال وعفت نفسها. She received that wealth and she honored and guarded herself. Said, I don't have to debase myself, dishonor myself anymore. I used to do it for a need, but that need is met. I'm not going to go out and do any sin. So he protected her with his charity, unknowing to him. And as for the third night, the rich man, he felt ashamed of his wealth that he doesn't share with others. So he went out the fourth night. Allahu Akbar. And therefore this teaches us, and then the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا. Do not ever underestimate any good you do. Doesn't matter who. Sometimes we look and we say, oh, that person, they don't deserve it, he's Muslim, he's not. Sometimes the charity you give prevents others from having to force us. Maybe you might give that young child who's in a syndicate, and he goes, he's not going to be beaten for not bringing enough money. And you protected that child. I'm not encouraging syndicates. Right? So report them and try to help the children, but keep in mind that every good there is a trace back to you, inshaAllah, in the dunya and the akhirah. Wallahu ta'ala.
What I would also say is, I entirely agree with what brother said. From the Sharia point of view, once you have given your zakat, you have given what you must give. Sadaqah is mustahab, it's good, but it's not compulsory. The Prophet ﷺ said, the believer is not one who is bitten twice from the same hole. If you've had a bad experience, learn. And if you can learn from other people's experiences, learn. But at the same time, be careful about getting so cynical that it could be a syndicate, it could be a fake, it could be a etc. So while on one side, don't do anything silly, it is better to err on the side of charity. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay, we do know that, in an environment that is, kind of poisonous for our deen, or, the way we live our life, then we should move away from that. But at the same time, as Brother Sheikh Yahya just mentioned, that a part of being a mustaqim or istiqamah is being able to stand straight when your environment is shaking. So when do we stay put, and when do we move away from a certain environment that is, deemed poisonous to us or something like that? Yeah, thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The qalb, the heart, is a dalil, gives us guidance. And sometimes our heart is warning us of something and we pretend it isn't. And sometimes there's these warning signs are in front of us and people have told us this, and this, and we just pretend that it's not there. And it's important for us to be responsible for ourselves before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Qur'an, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها, Allah does not burden a soul more than what it can withstand. It actually means Allah does not burden a soul with anything that He has not given them tools to withstand. You are empowered by Allah to change the difficulties in your life to a certain degree, or to mitigate them through your patience in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and hoping for Allah's faraj and assistance. So sometimes it's important for us to be very realistic with the dangers that we find ourselves in, with the difficulties that we find ourselves in. I think sometimes real talk is very important, especially between in a household. You know, our Sheikh, alhamdulillah, he was talking about being who you really are, husband and wife, right? In the first year, when you argue, it's actually something that releases unseen tensions and things that, you know, may creep up 3, 4, 5 years later in a worse light. And I think it's important to deal with things in that way, deal with things effectively, professionally. One of the sad realities is you find these people who are professionals in whatever career they have, highly educated, highly studied, you know, ruthless in their professionalism at work, and then in their home life, in their spiritual life, you see a complete contradiction. Ineffective in their decisions, unwilling to face realities, not willing to conform to what they know to be the right path in helping themselves or others. So the things that we would do for others, we have to do for ourselves as well. And I conclude, and I'll give our Sheikh Nuruddeen, you know, an opportunity to add to it, inshaAllah. The Prophet ﷺ, he says to us, "La yu'minu ahadukum." You don't complete faith until you love for others what you love for yourself. Means you have to love things for yourself. Like we always focus on the other part, love for others. But we forget the part where the Prophet ﷺ says, you have to love things for yourself. You have to put yourself forward sometimes. You have to be self-centered sometimes. You have to protect yourself sometimes. Even before you protect your husband, even before you protect your children, you have to protect your salvation. You have to protect your akhirah. إِنَّ مِنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ وَأَوْلَادِكُمْ عَدُوًّا لَكُمْ. Allah warned you there could be from your spouse and your children an enemy to you. You have to be on guard for your akhirah. Right? So take concern for yourself as much as you do for others. Inshallah, that's, I think, a constitution to live by. Wallahu ta'ala.
Something that I find useful is to have what you would call a personal board of directors. People you trust, people who know you very well, and they care about you, and they're good people. And when you start finding yourself in difficult situations, keep them in the picture. I mean by a personal board of directors, people who, if you're confused about something, and you consult them, and they all say, stop it, you will stop it. You will trust them enough that if all of them say this is bad for you, you would actually start to question your own sanity. Yeah, they're too sensible for me to brush aside. If they say don't take this job, don't marry this person, don't do this, don't go there, get out from this. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah has advised us, shawirhum fil amr, consult in your affairs. Try not to be a lone ranger in things. You can be alone. The lone sheep is the easiest target for the wolf. And when people are in difficulty, as Sheikh said, assess the situation carefully, so that you're not like the cube of sugar who sees his brother fall into the tea and decides, let me go and save him. Yeah. Really, if you can't do it, you can't change something with your hand, look for somebody who can. Yeah, but don't put, some say, don't go where angels dare not go. Yeah. Whatever your good intentions, learn to protect yourself too. Save yourselves and your families. Wallahu a'lam.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Shane. I think we're all feeling very inspired by what both of you shared with us today. But the reality, at least in my case, is I know I'll go home and my home and my work will overwhelm me, as I'm sure it will for all of us. So what I'm talking about is reality. The extremes of our lives. In Malaysia, we work sometimes until 8, sometimes until 9 o'clock. We come home, we want to devote some time to our family, and then we're too tired to open the Qur'an. and read, or we make excuses about not having enough time to go to class and study more about Islam, which is my reality. So I was wondering, you were talking about prioritizing your schedule. Is there anything in the Qur'an or in the Hadith that gives priority for what ibadah is the most important? You say job is a fardu kifaya, but I mean, where does it stand in relation to family and ourselves and studying for Allah and all of that? I just don't know where to place it in order. If you can help, thank you.
Reminds me of a mother who brought her son to Mahatma Gandhi to advise him to stop eating sweets. He takes too much sugar. And then he said, okay, come back next week. She comes back next week. Says, come back next week. Comes back next week. Come back next week. Comes back next week. Say, okay, good. And he tells the boy, don't take sugar. He's kind of like, why did that have to take up to 3 weeks? And he said, I had to get myself off sugar. Reality is our creation, and we need to take responsibility for the jobs we choose. It's your choice, and you take one side of the stick, the other side moves. It's useful to look for a job that doesn't threaten other things that are more important. We do not sacrifice more important things by less important things. It's not easy, but at least we should start asking ourselves, is this how I'm going to carry on? Like, is that it? And tomorrow is going to be another yesterday? And the reality of today will be the reality of tomorrow? Like the frog, I would advise to look for alternative jobs, alternative ways of working that allow you to slot in your priorities and those things that matter most to you. How free are your weekends? Is it possible that the time you spend in your car going to work, you could actually turn your car into a classroom? Yeah. You listen to lectures. You have no time to read something else. You listen to Qur'an. It's 30 minutes going, and if you're lucky you have traffic jams. You just stop complaining about the traffic jam and say, yeah, good, a long traffic jam ahead. You get to listen to this more. So I think one is to try and do more things at the same time. You're driving, can you at the same time get to listen to something useful? Do you decide to take a 30-minute walk round the block every day, every other day? And that is when you call your parents or call someone. In other words, instead of it just being a boring treadmill thing, you make it more valuable by adding value to it. I'm not saying that solves everything, but even under the circumstances, I think we can make better use of our time. Yeah, otherwise I don't want to say a lot because of the sugar thing.
I'm just going to add just one thing, inshallah. When I said to step towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will take 10 to you, it's true. It is true. Change one thing for Allah, He will change 10 things for you. 10 things that you didn't even know you needed to change. And you didn't plan on having them change. That first step to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eventually becomes a run. And that's why the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is, the one who steps to Allah, Allah takes 10 steps. The one who walks to Allah, Allah runs to him, right? So that first step is that first initial movement towards Allah. It then becomes a pace where you draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I also, I want to, that hadith that I quoted about that man who gave charity to those 3 individuals, I want that hadith to be something that you keep in mind. When you find that there is trouble in you, there's something troubling you. Remember I said you have everything. But there's one thing you can't cure for yourself, you can't fix for yourself. Look for something in someone else that you can fix. There are so many avenues and so many opportunities for us to reach out to someone, and you can literally change someone's life. You can literally take someone who has no education and secure a scholarship for that young boy that he has an education. You can literally take an orphan and make him feel loved as if he's part of a family. You can literally do that. And it's not at cost. Sometimes it's just time. Sometimes it's just a smile. And the Prophet ﷺ says, the one who wants mercy to enter their heart, just touch the head of the yatim. Just touch him. The head of a yatim. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So don't look at anything small that you do. And I also say to my dear sister, to worry about that is a sign of faith. It's iman. That one is worried about their time and worried about their circumstance. There are many who are not worried of their time and worried of their circumstance. So may Allah increase that in you and allow you opportunities and possibilities, whatever small, to bring improvement in your life and in the life of others. Allahumma ameen.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
My question is, Sheikh Nuruddeen, I'm very much deeply affected by what you said about...
Sorry, could you speak a little bit louder, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it better? Sheikh Nuruddeen, on chasing after your dreams and becoming what you like, what something that you're passionate about, because what better way to go to China? In Malaysia, women in their early 20s, they don't have a choice but to work. It's something between parental expectations and the duties of a daughter, and also a simple dream of to become a better person, for an eldest daughter to have at least help her parents in their old age. But sometimes parental expectations sometimes is just too high for the child. And in today's age, how would you advise a child who is trying to find a balance between the parents' very high expectation to chase monetary gains, a job that promises everything monetarily, materialistically, and to something that she actually loves, simply teaching. That's her passion. So how would you advise these parents and their daughter or their child to find balance, something that the daughter loves and something the parents get settled for, but at the same time, and how at the same time the daughter can ensure that money comes in with teaching, even though it doesn't seem so popular like being doctor or lawyer.
Thank you for that question, sister. You've directed it to the correct person, because Brother Nuruddeen Lemu has a master's in resource management.
Firstly, I think it's important when parents have expectations that are unreasonable to firstly learn to forgive them too. We all make mistakes, and it's usually good intentions on the side of the parents. I think, however, it's important for parents to recognize at least 2 or 3 things. One, what is the rizq, the gift that Allah has given this particular son or daughter? Most people who have excelled in some aspect of life excel because they love it. Let's think about it. Whether you're a doctor or you're a teacher, how do you compete with another person who actually loves reading about it, loves going to work? Like, how do you compete with somebody who loves their job? The moment a new book is out, they've read it. The moment there's a seminar, they're off. They'll save money. They gradually get better because they don't work to earn. They actually work to learn. But they become the best and they end up being paid more. And it's important, firstly, I think, for us to be polite, to be gentle, to be understanding, but also to find ways of communicating with our parents. When it comes to jobs, in the past, if you wanted a good job, you study law or engineering or medicine or accounting. And really a lot of it was you do the sciences. You don't make money in arts. Like you don't go and make money if you want to, you want to be a designer. But that was in the past. Now, you want to do accounting, there's some nerd in a corner working on a software that will end your job. There's another nerd in another corner producing software that writes software. You can't sell phones without a graphic designer. It used to be an MBA from Harvard University. That's the big thing. Now it's a master's in fine arts. Because every industry realized they can't even sell a toilet cleaner unless it's designer toilet cleaner. You can't sell a pen until it looks good. You can't sell anything. From glasses to bottles of water, from cups to cloth, you name it. Certain fields that really didn't matter in the past, now they matter tremendously. And you ask yourself, what is it that somebody studies? What is it that a person studies, is very good at it, and cannot be a millionaire in it? If money is your concern, what is it? Washing clothes? People manage laundrettes. Keeping places tidy? You've got companies who make millions doing that. Think about it. What can you touch around you that you don't have a millionaire behind? Which sound do you hear and you don't have a millionaire somewhere? Allah has put rizq in everyone. And I think it's useful for some of the more exposed older generation to help the younger generation communicate better with their parents. Yeah. So I think really it's how to communicate better. One, appreciating the risk. Secondly, to appreciate that really if money is their concern, you can make money. But more importantly, to ask ourselves the ultimate why, even in dunya, if that's their own concern. Money for what? To get a better house, to get a better whatever. What for? Ultimately to be happier. Why all this long route to happiness when I'll be happy enough doing that, I don't mind living in a cardboard box? If that's what will make me happier. You won't be happy in a cardboard box. But the key thing, I think, is really to try and just communicate better. If you're really good at anything, I couldn't believe a job. My hobby, I wish it was, I love it, is fishing. I love fishing. And I met somebody whose job is taking people fishing. Had I known there was a job like that earlier on. Somebody likes tennis, somebody likes something else. Can you make money in tennis if you're not Roger Federer? Yes, you teach people how to do it. And they pay you very well. If you're good. But you don't become really good unless you love what you're doing. And we're now living in a world that's moving towards a serious competition between people who love what they're doing and people who don't love what they're doing. The sooner you get onto doing what you love, spend more hours on it, become better. They have this thing, the 10,000 hour rule. Very interesting book, Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell. You know, and what makes people stand out? I talk too much. Yeah, I think better communication with people who can advise them better would probably be the way to go.
We enjoy your time today.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. To both sheikhs, I have one question to ask. What do you have to comment about al-mizan? This is in Surah Al-Rahman. والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا شيخ يحيى طغى ألا تطغوا في الميزان وقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The word mizan is always attached in the Qur'an to haqq, to truth. And it's always attached to the word where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَا الْكِتَابَ وَالْمِيزَانَ لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. We revealed the book along with the measure of the book, the balance of the book, which here most of the commentators say is the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he is the one who gives us the muwazana of life, the middle path of life, the thing that we balance and understand the Qur'an through. Its aim is to establish qist, justice amongst all. And most of the imams, when they speak about the basis of our faith, and I know our Sheikh Nuruddeen, he's quite competent in his discussions regarding the maqasid, it all relates to that which is best for humanity. What is the aim of our laws and what is best for human beings in all spheres, in all walks of life, in all moments of history, up until and including the moments before the Day of Judgment. So the mizan is to establish the Qur'an, to practice it in the right light, so that we don't la tatghaw fil mizan. Extremes and tughyan is to go overboard either way. Many people go to extreme by adding, and others go to extreme by neglect and deficiency. And therefore the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ warns about both. He warns you and I not to pray too much, and not to fast too much, and not to make decisions that limit our happiness in life. So a man who said, I will never marry and never experience the joy of having a wife and having that connection and contentment, and another who said, I will sleep never by night, only by day, and pray all night, and the other who said, I will fast every day for the rest of my life, the Prophet ﷺ said, Man raghiba ala sunnati falaysa minni. The one who strays from my sunnah, who does opposite to what I have done, which is marry and sleep and break his fast, cannot be from me. At the same time, the Prophet ﷺ warns us of those who will neglect from and take away some of the essentials of the faith that we seek to protect. So the mizan is the honored, timely sunnah of the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ that is established by the scholars of our fiqh as the understanding and the wisdom and the application of the Qur'an.
I entirely agree with our brother on this question of justice. And you could take the context of the verse in its historical context and say it's talking about not upsetting the scales in business. In other words, be fair and just. But we have to remember the Qur'an is meant for all time and place. And as the Sheikh mentioned, it doesn't stop there. The concept of justice goes beyond just economic. Justice to being truthful in every situation. And so some commentators move it not just to justice between people within a generation, but intergenerational justice. And so they apply to ecological balance. Yeah, that you do not destroy the balance in which Allah has created things. Why? Because the balance will reset itself. You may need global warming, you may need something to hit back to let you know you are upsetting a balance. And so looking at the various sunnah, starting with Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, and one of the most important things about that prophet that is kept on and on in even previous revelations, it was interesting to find it even in some of the Hindu scriptures, the story of Nuh alayhi salam, about saving species, or what today we call biodiversity, saving other creatures, and how that ties up to us saving ourselves. The importance of vegetation, trees. Prophet ﷺ said, if the day of judgment was to find you going to plant a seedling, a tree, finish planting it. Like, I'm not aware of anything that's worth doing once the day of judgment is upon you. And yet the Prophet ﷺ said, go ahead and plant it. And of course you ask yourself, how valuable is tree planting? And how valuable is protecting trees? And what's the big thing about trees anyway? For those who study ecology and environmental economics, it makes more sense that there is a balance in the way Allah has created things, and it's our responsibility as Khalifa to understand that balance, how to benefit from it, maintain it without it backlashing on us. So ultimately, as Sheikh said, it's to our own benefit ultimately that we keep that balance. Allahu Akbar.
Just for information of the audience, he also has a first degree in agriculture, that's why his references to trees. And he's ably qualified to speak of GCCs, the offspring of 2 judges in Nigeria, inshallah.
My question relates to the situation where priorities between a couple are not aligned. If you have one spouse, for example, who is trying to create a balance between dunya and akhirah, and unfortunately the other partner may be a little bit more inclined towards dunya. I see sadly a situation where it's become more prevalent where the second spouse is the man. It can become a sensitive issue to bring up from the wife. Basically, I'm trying to ask if you have any advice on what's the best way to approach this kind of situation to create balance and alignment in terms of both spouses' view of their purpose in life.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Shukr. One of the most difficult things that all of us encounter in life is that we know what we should do and we don't do it. Even worse is that we do it and the person that we love the most isn't there to do it with us. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, none of his wives were ever going to equal him in worship. Now I want you to understand that. There's the Prophet ﷺ, the nearest to Allah from all of the creation, in his ability to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No wife of his is going to rise to that level, right? And there were moments when the Prophet ﷺ, as is narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari, he came to the house of Ali radiallahu anhu, and Ali is Ali, Ali radiallahu anhu is not just, some guy, right? And Ali and Fatima are at home and they weren't praying at night, and it was in the night time of Ramadan. And the Prophet notices that they're asleep, so he knocks on their door, and Ali radiallahu anhu, he responded, yes, we'll wake up, yes, soon. And the Prophet struck his thigh, his own thigh, and said, وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. Surely mankind is ever argumentative. You know, if a prophet knocks on your door, tell you wake up and pray, you don't say yes and just give me another half an hour. Which is what happened, right? But what did the Prophet ﷺ do? Did he then see Ali the next morning with an angry face? Did he give him the silent treatment? You wanted something from you were expecting something from your husband. You know, I'm not the one that said it, the sister said it. She said it's usually the husband, right? So we're going to use that now, right? One of the problems is communication. The husband didn't do what, you know, so it's something for Allah. You feel, why didn't he come with me to the lecture? It was an awesome lecture. He should have come. He didn't come. He wakes up in the morning. Assalamu alaikum. What's wrong? Nothing. Is everything okay? Yeah. All of a sudden, that which is for Allah has now become a sensitivity between the two of you. And instead of you linking him to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and recognizing that it is for Allah at the end of the day, that if he's going to do something just for you, it's not even worthwhile anyway, then you need to change tactic in the sense that you need to find things that are more engaging for him, his thought, his stimulation, things that he will enjoy. So 3 ways to train your husband. All right? 1, sisters are all interested now. Shh, I gotta get this down. Where's the pen? Give me a pen. How to train your husband? 3 ways. 1, love him. It sounds, oh yeah, really? Love him? Not abuse him or anything? Shouldn't I smack him around? Love him. Wow. When Aisha used to get jealous over the Prophet ﷺ, like really jealous. Like one day in Sahih al-Bukhari, the Prophet in the middle of the night, she's asleep. He thought she was asleep. He woke up, got dressed, didn't want to wake her up for no other reason. He didn't wake her up. He didn't want her to wake her up. She's asleep. He left the house. She got so upset. She got so upset, she broke some of the dishes. And when the Prophet ﷺ returned, she says, رَأَى مَا أَصْنَعُ. He saw what I was doing. فَقَالَ مَا لَكِ يَا عَائِشَةَ. Aisha, what did you do? Why are you doing this? قالت أَوَ قَدْ غِرْتِ. Are you jealous, Ya Aisha? She said, كَيْفَ لَا يَغَارُ مِثْلِي عَلَى مِثْلِكَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. How can someone insignificant like me not be jealous over someone like you? All those women, they want you, Ya Rasulullah. I gotta keep my eye on you. I gotta know where you're going, when you're coming, and if you go out, I need to know. Right? How can I not be jealous? You're Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the Prophet smiled. قال أَوَ قَدْ جَاءَكِ شَيْطَانُكِ. Aisha, did the shaitan pay you a visit? She said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ma'i shaitan. I have my own personal one. Like he's my shaitan. He said, Bala, yes. She got scared. She said, Ma'i wala ma'a kulli insan. Just me or everyone else? He said, no, with everyone. She said, everyone. Wa ma'aka ant. And even you, because you're a human. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Qala bala, even with me. Walakin, but. أعانني الله عليه فأسلم. But Allah allowed me to overcome him. So he has submitted. The ulama say submitted means believes in Allah, or submitted that he cannot influence me to harm. فَلَا يَأْمُرَنِي إِلَّا بِخَيْرٍ. He can only tell me to do what's good. Now that's a moment of love from Aisha to the Prophet ﷺ. She used to know how to, I was talking yesterday in my course, Tafsir Surah Taha, about the love of the Prophet and Aisha. They used to have code words of love, like language that only they understood. In the hadith in Abi Dawood, Aisha, she says, Ya Rasulullah, Sif hubbak. It's not how much do you love me, describe how you love me. That's romance. But, you know, how do you love me? So the Prophet says, Kal-'uqd, it's like a tight knot. She says, okay, that's nice. So whenever he was, you know, with other people, she'd stick her head out of the door or something and she'd say, Ya Rasulullah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, kayfa al-'aqd al-yawm? How's that knot today? He's like, what knot? What are you talking about? She knows and he knows what nobody else knows. Right? Love. So he feels appreciated. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? You have to love your husband. He has to know that when you criticize him, not the right word, when you critique him, not the right word, when you hint politely at him, that it is because the underlying agreement between you is love. That even if you broke dishes, as Aisha did, he didn't find offense on it. He knows it's because she loves him. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Second, so that's first step of training. Second, choose his friends. Choose his friends. You're going to say, what does that mean, brother? Choose his friends. It means you got to be a smart Muslim woman. You don't choose your friends just because you like them, but you got to see, oh, Khadija. Okay, how's your husband? Oh, he's all right. He goes to the Jannah. He goes to halaqah. He attends courses. He plays golf. My husband plays golf. He went to University of Malaya. My husband went to University of Malaya. Something to it. Even though I don't like Fatima a lot, I like her enough for her husband to be my husband's friend. So you're actually going to set your husband out on a date, but he doesn't know. And all of a sudden you are introducing into his sphere of life people who will profit him. So you have to be intelligent. You got to choose his friends. My wife chooses my friends. And I choose her friends. Because it's got to work both ways. You can't just, oh yeah, okay, you hang around with Khalid, and no, I don't want to be near his wife. No, you gotta work it out. Third step is don't let issues of deen separate you in matters of life, in the things that how you deal with your kids, how you deal with your economics. Your husband didn't wake up for Fajr. Okay, it doesn't mean you don't cook breakfast. He didn't wake up for Fajr. It doesn't mean you say, well, if you don't wake up for Fajr, I'm not gonna do the laundry. You do the laundry yourself. I'm gonna do everyone's laundry except your laundry. Right? Don't let the issues of deen affect the day-to-day life. Because then he feels that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what is owed to him is just another part of the worldly sphere. You have to honor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I leave you with this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. It's narrated by the Imam al-Tirmidhi. It's sahih. He says, رَحِمَ اللَّهُ امْرَأَةً, and he mentions the woman first. Allah's mercy shrouds this woman, descends upon this kind of woman. رحم الله امرأة قامت لتقوم الليل. She woke up early in the middle of the night to pray to Allah by night. فرأت زوجها نائم. She saw her husband snoring away. فأيقظت. She tried to wake up. فأبى. He said, get away. I'm not getting up for nothing. فنضحته بالماء. So she took water and not poured it. She sprinkled it, not kab. She took some water in her fingers and she just sprinkled it in his face. Hatta afaq, until he woke up to himself. Wasalla, and they both prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's Allah's mercy descends. on that kind of woman. In also an authentic hadith, sorry, I'll add one more hadith. In an authentic hadith narrated by Imam Khuzaymah al-Tabarani and others, the wonderful hadith, the Prophet says to us men, and these are the characteristics of the Muslim woman who is the ideal woman who leads her husband to Allah. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, تزوجوا الودود الودود العقود. Choose in your life to marry al-wadud, the woman who's tender. You see in her behavior, in the behavior of her family and others, that there's tenderness. Al-walud, you perceive that she will be nurturing for you and for her children, that she wants her children will be nurturing to them. And third, al-a'ud, the one who appreciates good by returning it in greater measure. Al-a'ud ta'udu bil khayr. That if you say Assalamu alaikum, it's Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah in response. I love you more. She's always increasing the good that which she has received. And then he says, Allati in ghadiba zawjuha. She's the kind of woman that if she and her husband have difficulty and strife, there's a problem between them. وضعت يدها في يده. She puts her hand in his hand. وقالت لا أذوق غمضا حتى ترضى عني. And says, by Allah, we will not sleep until we are pleased with each other again. Communicative. Wanting to solve the problem. There's a huge difference between that and the silent treatment. Huge difference between that and I'm not gonna, he should know what's wrong. If he doesn't fix it, I'm not going to talk to him. I'm going to send him an SMS. I won't talk to him. Right? I'll post it on Facebook. He'll read it. So you got to be, inshallah, appreciative of that. And finally, for the brothers, and just in honor of our sisters, the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith in Sahih Muslim, خَيْرُ مَتَاعِ الدُّنْيَا, the greatest accomplishment that a person can have in this worldly life, from the men's perspective, al-mar'atu salihah, is a good woman. What's a good woman? How does the Prophet describe her? التي إن نظر إليها أسرت. She's that woman that when he sees her, some interpret sees her from a distance, like she doesn't know he's looking at her. He feels joy in his heart that she's his wife. He's like, yeah, that's my wife.
I entirely agree with the advice the brother gave, and what I'm going to say is just put myself in the shoes of a husband whose wife feels that he's not doing well enough, maybe not even good enough. I think in such a situation, I would like my wife to have the courage to discuss things with me, to not bottle it up, to not silently get angrier and angrier or more and more frustrated, particularly if I'm not committing a sin. I'm not perfect, I go at my own pace. I would like my wife to appreciate that I may not be a bad person, that of the various forms of dhikr, some are easier for some people and some more difficult for others. I may be better at smiling, she may be better at more nawafil. I may be better at comforting others. She may be better at sadaqah or reciting Qur'an. I would like such a wife not to lend good to me. Do good on the condition that I improve. I'd like her to do good because she's pleasing Allah and she believes it's good to be good. I don't want to feel manipulated. And as the Sheikh said, I wouldn't want religion brought in as a tool to be used for guilt. Some subliminal, I'm better than you you should catch up with me. I would usually believe that your actions speak louder than your words, and you can't talk yourself out of something you behaved yourself into. If you don't really care about my needs, I have an excuse. I'm not saying it's the right thing, but I'll have an excuse to not care too much about your needs. One thing to remember, according to most family therapists, marriage counselors, people come seeking advice on the average 6 years later than they should have come. Yeah, it's terrible. 6 years late. The moment you find things are not really working, the graph is not improving, seek help. Yes. And have the courage to step on your pride and ask somebody who knows better what to do. You're married to a unique person. Such a person didn't exist before. This is the first time. We all make mistakes, but it's not worth making silly mistakes if seeking advice could have prevented it. Allahu Akbar.
Jazakallah khair, brother. And no, he does not have a degree in marriage counseling. Alhamdulillah, we come to the 10:45, we've exceeded our time limit. I'm sure we all want to carry on listening to the wise words of our two Sheikhs on stage. On behalf of the NPF for the Muslim Professionals Forum, I thank the both of them for spending their time with us and for sharing their much sought after wise words. And inshallah, Allah will accept our attendance tonight on the second night of Zulhijjah and Ibadah. And again, on behalf of the organization, thank you all for being present this evening, and inshallah we'll meet again another day. We'll end with the usual